On Tarkir, a Dragonstorm is brewing, and here at Tolarian Community College, so are we. Brewing up commander decks, that is. Who is the best new commander from Tarkir? Well, if you're looking for the best new dragon commander, we covered that in last week's video, but what about if you are brewing up a non-dragon commander? I just love Tarkir. Honestly, I'm so excited to be here on this plane for this set, to be back in such a flavorful, non-Universes Beyond Magic the Gathering world. If Ugin is the eye of the Dragonstorms, then surely Tarkir Dragonstorm feels like the eye of the Universes Beyond storms. A true, dyed-in-the-wool, in-universe Magic the Gathering set, one that feels simultaneously brand new and steeped in Magic tradition. And one that follows a whole bunch of sets that don't feel like Magic, and is going to be followed by a whole bunch of sets that don't feel like Magic. In an era where Chandra drives a motorcycle and Oko wears a cowboy hat, it's nice to remember how great Magic sets that feel like Magic sets truly are. Look! Dragons! Tarkir! Magic the Gathering! Enjoy it while you can, because it's all Spider-Man and SpongeBob until we return to Lorwyn in 2026. So who are the top 5 most powerful non-dragon commanders of Tarkir? In this video, I'll not only talk about my favorite non-dragon legends from Tarkir Dragonstorm for the command zone, but I'll also cover what makes them good commanders, how I'd go about building around them, and what sorts of cards and play patterns I'd employ to maximize their potential. Remember, I always say that booster packs are for draft, and the best way to spend your money when building decks is just to buy the singles that you need. This is especially important these days because, the job market is really tough, and it seems like it's only getting tougher. And if you're looking for a new job right now, one of the best possible things you can do to improve your chances at finding a high-paying position is to learn how to code. And the absolute best way to learn how to code is by having fun while doing it, and you can do all of that with Boot.dev, sponsor of today's video. Boot.dev is a coding course that teaches back-end web development from start to finish in the Python, Go, and SQL programming languages. What makes Boot.dev such a successful way to learn how to code? Well, the course is structured like a captivating role-playing game, meaning you'll never be bored while you learn, so you can stick with the program long enough to reach your goals. I mean, think about it. You've learned how much about Magic the Gathering, all the minutiae of all these cards and what they do? Well, imagine if that was learning to code. That's kind of the premise behind Boot.dev. But it's not just playing a game, because with Boot.dev, you're going to be writing a ton of code and building real projects that equal real skills. Programmers have amazing earning potential. According to Stack Overflow, the median salary for back-end web developers in the US was over $100,000 in 2023. Now that said, learning to code isn't some get-rich-quick scheme. Boot.dev's curriculum takes some time and goes properly in-depth on both the theory and practice of coding. Honestly, Boot.dev is a truly incredible product, and I can't recommend it highly enough. If you want to learn to code but feel daunted by the prospect, then just go to Boot.dev and try out the courses for free. That's right, for free. And then if you love it, you can use my code Tolarian to get 25% off your entire first year if you choose the annual plan. Thank you, Boot.dev, for sponsoring this video. First up, we have a mono-color commander that loves suspense. Taigom, Master Opportunist, is a 2-mana 2/2 with the new mechanic Flurry. Whenever you cast your second spell in a turn, copy it, then exile it with 4 time counters on it. If it doesn't have Suspend, it gains Suspend. Taigom is a strange card to build around, but there's actually a ton of play to him. First of all, you're going to want a nice array of cheap spells to consistently trigger Flurry, not just on your own turn, but on each of your opponent's turns as well. If you're Josh Lee Kwai, then you will want to include Leyline of Anticipation and its compatriot, Vidalcan Orrery, to better facilitate your Flurry on an opponent's turn shenanigans. You might even want to do this if you're not Josh Lee Kwai, but you'll definitely want to do it if you are Josh Lee Kwai. Josh, if you're watching, those are the cards to include. Once your engines are up and running, Taigom will create a steady flow of cards that will bury your opponents in card advantage. In addition to the spells you'll be tossing on Suspend, you'll also want effects that manipulate the number of time counters on your suspended cards to help you cast them quicker, such as those with the time travel mechanic from Doctor Who. You can also run cards that care about casting cards from somewhere other than your hand. Of course, you don't need time counter manipulation to have a great time with a Taigam deck. Taigam is perfectly happy to play patterns of cast Taigam, cast a 0-mana spell to immediately trigger Flurry, or just counter your opponent's spell as the first card you cast on their turn. Then cast a cantrip to copy and put on Suspend. It's important to sequence your spells so the most impactful spell you can put on Suspend is always the second you cast. And since Suspend 4 is a lot in Commander, you'll want to pack plenty of interaction to ensure you don't die while you wait around for your cards to come off Suspend. The main problem with Taigam right now is that there aren't as many cards that interact with time counters or casting spells from exile in mono blue as would be ideal. But as time goes on and more time counter cards are printed, Taigam will become a better and better commander, and in the meantime, Taigam is a very fun and very silly commander that's capable of doing a lot of nonsense from the command zone. Number 4 on the list is Felithar, Dawn of the Abzan, a sweet mix of aggression and aristocrat strategies for the command zone. For a white, black, and green mana, Felithar offers a 3/3 trampling body with a great triggered ability. On entry and attack, Felithar lets you sacrifice a permanent. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Felithar wants all the classic cards you'd want in an aristocrat's deck: sack fodder, sack payoffs, and sack outlets. You'll also want all the things you'd want in a go-wide aggro deck: token generators, stat boosts, and a plan for dealing with opposing board wipes. And as Felithar grants all your creatures +1/+1 counters with ease, you'll also want to include plenty of cards that interact with counters, like Hardened Scales effects and cards that grant special abilities to creatures with counters. Felithar also benefits from cheap utility creatures, such as mana dorks and of course role players like Esper Sentinel, which provide a benefit early in the game and then will grow alongside the rest of your team as you trigger Felithar more and more. But what is the best possible card to run in the 99 of Felithar, Dawn of the Abzan? Why, it's Agatha's Soul Cauldron, of course. Since Felithar puts counters on all your creatures, every single creature you control will have every ability of every creature exiled under Soul Cauldron. And because Felithar's ability sacrifices permanents, it'll be very easy to put creatures with good abilities in your graveyard to exile with the Cauldron. All this combines into an exceptionally tight and synergistic deck list. When your Felithar deck starts moving, it's really gonna start moving, with lots of interlocking pieces that get stronger the more of them you have in play. This is 3-color commander design at its best. What is the center point of the Venn diagram of green, white, and black? Go wide aggro, aristocrats, and graveyard synergy. Sublime. Next up, we have Kottis, the Fang Keeper, the new Khan of the Sultai clan. Kottis is a 2/1 zombie warrior for 1 generic and 1 of each Sultai mana. He's got indestructible and, whenever Kottis deals combat damage to a player, exile the top X cards of their library, where X is the amount of damage dealt. You may cast any number of spells with mana value X or less from among them without paying their mana costs. Kottis is a strange card to wrap your head around. 4 mana for a 2/1 is a terrible rate at face value, but natural indestructible is such a powerful keyword that it makes up for Kottis' stat line. Then, when you add in Kottis' combat trigger, this becomes a genuinely powerful magic card. In fact, the more you think about how this card plays out as a commander, the more you realize that the 2/1 stat line makes perfect sense. Kottis, the Fang Keeper, is perfectly suited to be a grindy, almost Voltron value commander. The goal of a Kottis deck list is simple. Suit Kottis up with various pants that buff his power and make him evasive. Then swing in for both consistent damage and a ridiculous amount of card advantage. Not just drawing cards, but casting them without spending mana. So really, I consider the Voltron elements for Cottis more as a means to an end. You're not suiting up Cottis to one-shot players, though of course you can do so if you'd like. Sure, you want to boost his power to some extent so that you exile more cards and cast more impactful spells. You can also give him double strike if you want to get really, really greedy. But the true purpose of Cottis is to farm consistent cards from your opponent's decks, accruing value while interacting with the board and protecting your game plan from opposing interaction. In other words, slow and steady to win the race. Green will provide the bulk of your auras and ramp, while blue and black offer spells that pay you off for controlling cards you don't own, like Agent of Treachery and Tasha the Witch Queen. Cottis is a very cool take on Voltron, to the point where he's almost not a Voltron commander at all. I, for one, cannot wait to see what he can do in the command zone. Number 2 on this list is a true burn commander, the likes of which the format has not seen much of ever. Burn is a difficult sell in Commander, where instead of dealing 20 damage to one opponent, you have to deal a combined 120 damage to 3 opponents. As such, the closest thing to burn in Commander tend to be Punisher decks, dealing consistent, repeatable damage with painful permanents like Ankh of Mishra, but no longer. All that being said, let's take a look at the number 2 pick for top non-dragon commander from Tarkir. Narset, Jeskai Waymaster, is a 3-mana, 3/4 human monk for one of each Jeskai colors. She's got a very simple ability. At the beginning of your end step, you may discard your hand. If you do, draw cards equal to the number of spells you've cast this turn. Narset is a sweet commander that asks for some pretty unique deck building considerations. Essentially, what you want to do with Narset is cast a flurry of spells every turn, emptying your hand and then refuel on end step to do it again on the following turn. There are a number of ways to do this, from cheap creatures to interactive spells to, you guessed it, direct damage burn spells. You'll also want creatures that appreciate you casting a lot of spells, such as cards with Flurry, Jeskai's new mechanic from Tarkir Dragonstorm, or just the classic Jeskai mechanic, Prowess. You can run cards that benefit from you discarding cards on your end step, like Monument to Endurance or Currency Converter. At higher power level tables, where this sort of thing is more acceptable, extra turn effects are also extremely effective with Narset. What you won't want to run are many pure card draw spells, especially expensive ones, or counter magic for holding up on your opponent's turn. This is an aggressive commander through and through. You'll be spending your opponent's turn tapped out, but you'll make up for it with a wave of spells cast on your turn. Remember, you don't have to discard your hand on end step. You'll likely want to spend the first few turns of the game setting up your engines to prepare for your big bursts of spellcasting in the mid to late game. And you can always take a turn off from cashing in your hand for fresh cards if you have a compelling reason to keep the particular cards that you have in hand. Now remember, this list is covering non-dragon commanders, as we covered the best new dragon commanders from Tarkir here. So who is the number 1 best new commander that is not a dragon from Tarkir? Well, the number 1 best new non-dragon commander in Tarkir Dragonstorm might not be a dragon, but she does have a dragon's claw. She's Eshki Dragonclaw, the Khan of the Teamer. Eshki Dragonclaw is a 4/4 human warrior with trample, vigilance, and ward 1, because we couldn't go a set without putting ward on something. She costs 1 generic and 1 of each Teamer mana to bring into play. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you've cast a creature and a non-creature spell this turn, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Eshki and draw a card. If Cottis is a non-Voltron commander with Voltron elements, then Eshki is a Voltron commander with non-Voltron elements. You don't need to suit Eshki up with cards from your 99. She'll do her own powering up, thank you very much. Instead, focus on triggering that beginning of combat ability every single turn, and maybe even more than once per turn. You heard me right, you can trigger Eshki more than once in a turn. You just need extra combat steps in order to do it. Cards like Aggravated Assault, Seize the Day, and Morag, Fury of Akum. These cards go nuts with Eshki in play. Even when you're not playing extra combat steps, Eshki Dragonclaw gets big really quickly. It's easy to make her a 6/6 the turn she comes down if you have a cheap or free spell to cast on the turn you play her. If you manage to trigger her again on your next turn, then you'll be attacking an unlucky opponent for 8 trampling and vigilant commander damage. Because Eshki is a Voltron commander that doesn't need to be enchanted or equipped, decks helmed by her will be less fragile, more resilient to opponents' interaction. Sure, your opponent can point a removal spell at her and pay the 1 from that ward ability, but you'll still be left with whatever the creature and non-creature spells you cast that turn provided you. Oh, and you'll have drawn a card for your trouble. In case you hadn't noticed, I love Voltron commanders, and I especially love Voltron commanders that offer something new to an archetype that seems pretty rigid and samey at face value. Both Eshki and her fellow Khan Katis accomplish this in spades, and remarkably, they do it in a way that's different from one another. In fact, all 5 of the commanders I've highlighted in this video offer something new to the commander format. Yet another win for what is quickly shaping up to be my favorite set of 2025. So that covers all of the best new commanders, dragon and non-dragon alike. But now I want to hear from you. Is there a commander I didn't cover in either of these videos that you think is worthy of a mention? Let me know in the comments below. And remember, Tarkir is not just about Commander. If you want to watch our video about the best new cards for Standard from Tarkir, or just watch us play Standard on Shuffle Up and Play, you can check out those videos here, and linked in this video's description. And remember, one of the best ways to move up in the job market is by learning a valuable skill like coding, and there's no better way to learn how to code than with boot.dev that turns coding into a game. Imagine if learning Magic the Gathering cards was actually learning how to program in the Python language. Well, with boot.dev, that's the very premise. Boot.dev teaches you coding through a game, and as you progress through that game, you'll earn experience, level up, and gain achievements while you complete quests and compete for a top spot on the global leaderboard. Best of all, you can try out the courses on boot.dev for free. Go see what it's like. Right now, it's free. And if you love it, then you can use my code Tolarian to get 25% off your entire first year if you choose the annual plan. Thank you, boot.dev, for sponsoring this video.
Next time on Shuffle Up and Play.
What's up? It's Shuffle Up and Play. Today, Allie Beardsley, Jesse Robkin, and Spice 8 Rack, but we have a deck for it designed to delight and terrify.
I'm beside myself with terror.
This is your commander.
You son of a bitch.
Add a counter here. Don't read into the fact that I'm using a d20 to keep track of the counters.
Tap 5 for throwing stuff.
No!
So-
Wait, how is that gonna work in this?
Oh, Hatsune Miku. She made Magic the Gathering.
Through the magic of editing, I will determine what I'm keeping. And watch this. And then we're just gonna say, I don't give a Urza.
We leave that in.
Please keep that in. Please keep that in.